Chapter 25, Part 1 of It Happened in Egypt. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. It Happened in Egypt, by Charles Norris Williamson and Alice Muriel Williamson. Chapter 25, Marooned, Part 1. Had any human fly ever buzzed himself so fatally into the spider webs of other people's love affairs? I asked myself sternly. As soon as Providence plucked me out of one web, back I would bumble into another, though I had no time for a love affair of my own. When the enchantress Isis had slipped past many miles of desert shore, black-striped and tawny as a leopard's skin, and other desert shores so fiercely yellow as to create an effect of sunshine under grey skies, we arrived at Aswan. I had not yet kept my promise to Rachel, though whether from lack of opportunity or courage I was not sure. Here we were at historic Aswan, and nothing had happened, nothing which could be written down in black and white, since the excitement at Luxor. Nevertheless, some of us were different within, and the differences were due, directly or indirectly, to those excitements. Now that we were nearing Ethiopia, alias the land of Cush, though Monny said she could not bear to have it called by that name, except of course in the Bible, where it couldn't be helped. How would any of us like to register at an hotel as Mr. or Miss So-and-so of Cush? Oshkosh sounded more romantic. No land, however, could look more romantic than Aswan, city of the cataracts, Greek Syene, that granite quarry whose red syenite made obelisks and sarcophagi for kings of countless dynasties. Swan, as the Copts renamed it, a frontier town of Egypt since the days of Ezekiel the prophet, now appeared a gay place, made for pleasure pilgrims. Sky and river were dazzling blue, and the sea of sand was a sea of gold, the dark rocks lying like tamed monsters at the feet of Khnum, god of the cataract, glittered bright as jet, over which a libation of red wine had gushed. The river front of the town, with its hotels and shops, was brightly coloured as a row of shining shells from a southern sea, tints of pink and blue and amber, translucently clear in contrast with the dark green of lebbek trees and palms, in whose shadow flowers burned, like rainbow-tinted flames of driftwood. Between our eyes and the brilliant picture, a network of thin dark lines was tangled, as if an artist had defaced his canvas with scratches of a drying brush. These scratches were in reality the masts of moored feluccas, bristling close to the shore like a high hedge of flower stems, stripped of blossoms and bent by driving wind. On the opposite side of the river, the desert crouched like a lion who flings back his head with a shake of yellow mane, before he stoops to drink. And in the midst of the stream rose Elephantine Island, with its crown of feathery palms, its breastwork of Roman ruins, a medal of fame for the kings it gave to Egypt, and its undying lullaby sung by the cataract among surrounding rocks. Very strange rocks they were, black as wet onyx, though for thousands of years they had been painted rose by sunrise and sunset, shapes of animal gods, shapes of negro slaves, shapes of broken obelisks and fallen temples, shapes of elephants like those seen first by Egyptians on this island, shapes which one felt could never have taken form except in Egypt. Over our heads armies of migrating birds made a network like a great floating scarf of beads, each bead a bird, and the blue water round the slow-gliding enchantress was crowded with boats of many hitherto unknown sorts, that they might have been visiting craft from another world. Feluccas with sails red or white, or painted in strange patterns, or awninged, some with rails like open trellis work of many colours, over which dark faces shone like copper in the sunshine, rowing boats, galleys with fluttering flags, and old soap-boxes roughly lined with tin, in which naked imps of boys perilously paddled. Out from the boats rushed magic in clouds like incense, wild, African music of chanting voices, beating tom-toms, or clapping hands that clacked together like castanets. Very old men and very young youths thumped furiously on earthen drums shaped like the jars of Elephantine, once so famous that they travelled the length of Egypt filled with wine. The breeze that fanned to us from beyond the palms and lebbeks, the roses and azaleas, was soft and flower-laden. There was a scent in it, too, as of ripe grapes, as if a fragrance lingered from vanished days when wine for the gods was made from Elephantine vineyards, and fig trees never lost their leaves. We ourselves and our big three-decked boat were alone in our modernity, if one forgot the line of gay buildings on the shore. Everything else might have been out of the time when the world supposed Elephantine to be placed directly on the Tropic of Cancer, and believed in the magic lamp which lit the unfathomable well, the time when quarries of red and yellow clay gave riches to the island, and all Egypt thanked its gods when Elephantine's Nilometer showed that the two lands would be plentifully watered. Most of us were going to live on board the Enchantress for our 3 days at Assuan, but, hearing that lords and ladies of high degrees swarmed at the Cataract Hotel with its wild, watery view of tumbled rocks, and at the Savoy in its flowery gardens, some went where they might hope to cross the path of dukes and duchesses. The Monyites were not wild about the aristocracy, nor would royalty, of later date than the Ptolemies, have lured Cleopatra from her suite on the boat. But the whole party was eager for shore, and no sooner had the Enchantress put her foot on the yellow sands than she was deserted by her passengers. The bazaars were the first attractions, for everybody said that they were as fine in their way as the bazaars of Cairo. So very soon we were all buying silver, ivory, stuffed crocodiles and ostrich feathers from the Sudan, which now opened its gates not far ahead. The Sudan, mysterious, unknown, and vast. Cleopatra clung to me, with a certain wistfulness, as if in this incarnation she were not so intimately at home in Upper Egypt as she had hoped to be. Perhaps this loneliness of her soul was due to the fact that instead of seeking her society, Anthony with an H seldom came near her now. Something had warned him off. He would never tell me or anyone on earth, but unused to the ways of women as he was, I felt sure that he had been uncomfortably enlightened as to Cleopatra's feelings. The cure according to his prescription was evidently to be absent treatment. But there was another which I fancied might be efficacious, the sudden arrival on the scene of Marcus Antonius Lark. I happened to know that he proposed a dash from Cairo to Assuan by train, for I had received 2 telegrams at the moment of walking off the boat. The first message announced his almost immediate advent, the second regretted unavoidable delay, but expressed an intention not to let us steam away for Wady Halfa without seeing him. The alleged excuse was business, but I thought I saw through it, and sympathized, for he whom I once cursed as a brutal tyrant of money-bags now loomed large as a pathetic figure. Despite the lesson of the lotuses, I believed that his motive was to try his chance with Mrs. East, that life had become intolerable, unless Lark's luck might hold again, and that he could not wait till the cruel lady returned to Cairo. It was a toss-up, as we walked side by side to the incense-laden bazaar, whether I told her the news or left her to be surprised by the unexpected visitor. Eventually I decided that silence would help the cause, and in thus making up my mind I was far from guessing that my own fate and Monny's and Anthony's and Brigit's hung also on that insignificant decision. I was thankful that Mrs. East said no more of bringing her niece and me together, and that on the contrary she dropped dark hints about everything in life which she had wanted, being now too late and useless to hope for in this incarnation. Why she had changed her plans for Monny I could not be sure, enough for me that she apparently had changed them. Sir Marcus did not appear the next day or the next, and I heard no more. Indeed, between dread of breaking the truth to Bill Bailey, and self-reproach at letting time pass without breaking it, I almost forgot Lark's love affair. I salved my conscience by working unnecessarily hard, and even helping Kruger with his accounts, when Anthony too generously relieved me of other duties. How I envied Fenton at this time, because no girls asked him what men they ought to marry, or implored him to prevent men from jilting them, or urged him to enlighten handsome sculptors with wavy soft hair, and hard eyes resembling the crystal orbs which were to become fashionable in society. Anthony loved Assuan, and apparently enjoyed displaying its beauties. Not knowing that I hid a fox under my mantle, he meant to be kind in taking people off my hands, giving them tea on the Cataract Hotel veranda, escorting them to the ruined Saracen castle which, with Elephantine opposite, barred the river and made a notable gateway,